Good morning.
Morning.
How are we doing?
Morning. How's everybody?
Yes, good today, thankfully. Thank you very much, everybody else.
Yeah, bad,
very good.
Thank you. Is
Miserable
Fem,
day here.
Are you all right, Fem? Shall I invite you in? Is your internet working? And Fem's here too.
Hi, she likes to make her own entrance, don't you, Fem?
Well, it's only 9:29 on my computer, so you're early.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Eager
well, we're
beavers.
keen. Team beans.
It's Amanda's fault. She's in a naughty mood this morning.
I don't know
dear.
why I'm in a naughty mood. I'm going to have to watch my P's and Q's.
Is it that Friday morning gin, Amanda, that's done it?
Gosh, yeah, it was. Please don't give all my secrets out, will you, Kate?
Morning, everyone. Say hello in the chat. As you can see, it's 4 of us today, so it's promising to be a lively one, a good fun one to this morning. I think last time all 4 of us did it was Christmas time.
Yes.
Yeah, when we all got a bit emotional.
Oh, yes,
we did. Yeah, we did get a bit emotional. Yeah.
Hi, Katia. We should have got Katia on as well. That would have been good. All 5 of us. Morning, Matthew. How are you doing? Lovely to have you on. So today we're talking about welcoming ourselves and our team members and our colleagues back to sales and back to work, and how that's going to work and everything. We've each kind of got our own ideas of what we feel is kind of important to go through. Well, it's all important to go through, but the kind of routes that we go down. So who wants to go first?
Who's that?
No, you're pointing to. Everyone's pointing in different directions. Fem, you can start because I know that you've probably done the most prepping.
Okay, let me start because I'm the one who is most prepared this morning and didn't just run around trying to put concrete in my garage.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I just literally sat down. Okay, so I was going to talk a little bit about prospecting, and the reason I picked that topic this morning is because I've been talking a lot about prospecting with my team this week, and how it feels to prospect throughout a pandemic, and also when you haven't done it for a while, or when there hasn't, you haven't been able to get many responses because people are not there or not booking meetings. And what it feels like to come back and kind of start again. And it's like getting over the hump. You need to start again. And when you think about it, like, oh, I don't really want to pick up the phone and speak to random strangers. And actually, once you do it, it's fine. But I think the things that we have to remember really is that it's not to be too salesy. That's what we always say. And that it's all about relationships. But there's a few tips from me really about prospecting at the moment, and especially if you've just come back, is just to take a step back and not to send out lots of blanket emails to people and hope for the best. Basically, it's not about the numbers at the moment. It's more about picking quality prospects. So this doesn't even include any people that you've already spoken to once before, because obviously that's just catching up with your clients, things like that. But really just to think about, okay, I'm going to take this focus. What kind of business do we need to fill the venue or the hotel with, or what kind of business would I like? Because I'm sure in some situations, when everything goes back to normal, there's going to be a lack of availability, or everyone's going to be really busy. But what is it that you need? And then focus on that kind of prospecting. And I was talking to one of my associates who I mentor, and she's been prospecting. She said, it's just not working. And I said, well, what are you doing? She said, well, I'm looking at local companies and just trying to find people in this area who are event managers. And I said, okay, well, that's just you doing one thing, and that hasn't worked for the last little while. So why don't you change it? Why don't you think of something else that you can do, and change your method as well? Don't just send emails all the time, and don't just do the same thing, but really mix it up. But I would say take a step back, research what, or kind of make a plan, a starting point. So say, oh, I'm going to prospect, you could say local companies, or you're going to prospect a certain market sector, and really stick with that. So you have a bit of focus in your prospecting. And then research. So are these people actually working? Are they on furlough? Because any kind of message that is sent with the wrong kind of information at the moment will just be deleted, or actually you can do a lot of damage if you're sending it to someone who's going to be like, well, why are you sending me this? Because I've been on furlough, or we're not holding any events, or we're not doing this bit of business. So really personalize your prospecting more than you have ever done before, I think is really important. But just remember that it's, the person on the other side is also a person who's been through a year of pandemic. So make it friendly and personal, and don't worry too much about being salesy and pushy.
Prospecting is a really interesting topic, I find, because everybody has their own perception of what it means, how to do it, and how they feel comfortable doing it. I did a talk workshop on Monday. Rachel, hi Rachel, was there, and I started off doing a bit of a poll of how people feel about prospecting, and a lot of the words that were coming up was nervous, anxious, unsure. One of the words was future, which I thought was really interesting, and another word was scattergun, and I found it interesting to see what different people's kind of feelings are around it, and I think for a lot of our clients, certainly that we speak to, regularly, have said that previously, pre-COVID, their business has come through word of mouth. They've never had to sell, they've never had to prospect. It's just kind of ticked over or come in directly to them, and now you kind of start, like you say, Fem, starting from scratch, and that can be really daunting. So you're exactly right. Getting a plan in place of how you're going to do it can make you feel a lot better about it. And like you say, it's all in the research.
And the thing with prospecting is that people want instant results, and that's just not what prospecting is. So if when you talk about scattergun, people just say, oh, I'll send the message here, and I'll email this person, and maybe your phone is, oh, I've done my prospecting for today. But it's a process that takes a long time. And I would always say 3 to 6 months. And we all know about the contact points, that it takes about 5 to 7 points of contact before someone actually buys from you. So if you don't get an instant response, then don't give up. This is about a whole kind of, a process that you have to go through. And
nurturing them, isn't it? It's like a nurture. Sorry? I always think of it as a nurturing.
Yeah, and if you call someone, they don't have business for you at that particular point, it doesn't mean it's a no forever. That means it's you've spoken to them, and there may be something there in the future, and that it always comes back, or they may be able to recommend you to someone. But don't go in there launching all about your product and boring them to death. It's all about building that relationship
for longer term. Yeah, really interesting. A good topic to start with, I think, because it's going to be on everybody's agenda, I think, over the next couple of months. Thanks, Fem. Amanda, we were talking about kind of strategy, weren't we, and pivoting in that sense.
Yeah, I think I'm just absolutely agreeing with Fem. It's about looking at what you need to do going forward. I think from a venue point of view, venues now won't be, or there certainly won't be inquiries coming through for those larger events, because we just don't know whether we can host them. So the car launches, the product launches, the big national get-togethers or company away days and things, that I believe is probably going to be on the back burner for a few months, just while we work out sort of what we can and can't do. So it's about having a strategy in place of okay, well, we can't have the large events, so what do we need to do to encourage clients to come to our venues, that we can offer something that's more bespoke or smaller meetings. It can be the senior level directors that are all meeting together, And then, of course, we can then sort of look at a strategy in terms of, well, if the smaller senior levels meet and stay overnight, say between 8 and 15, then, can we then integrate a hybrid event in terms of that message going out to the rest of the company, if it's across the country. So it's again looking at the different strategies and how you approach it, and having, it's similar to what Fem said, having a prospect and a plan in place, and then going forward with that and identifying some key areas or key industries that will benefit in terms of that offering. So it's along those lines.
I think it's important as well that strategy is filtered down and and the people that are taking the inquiries are included as much as possible in that strategy making as well. And I know that's obvious, but
I don't think it is obvious.
I know.
Well,
I don't think
it's obvious from our point of view.
It's obvious from us, but obviously, yeah,
because you're going to get people coming back that were probably completely on the ball before and knew exactly what was going on in terms of what they could and couldn't sell and what was going on and what the strategy is. And now everything's just been flipped, isn't it? So that needs to be communicated to the event sales team effectively, and I think they should be involved in the discussions as well, as so that they understand it better, they get their buy-in, etc. as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Becky. And also, I mean, we're going to have to look at going back to the team. Also, these team members may not have been in the business for 12 months. They may have been furloughed, so some might be absolutely itching to get back into the driving seat and do what they love. Some will be very reticent, not sure, would have lost their confidence, or not sure what the procedures are, what they do. I don't know about you guys, but if I have 2 weeks holiday, I literally come back and I don't know whether I'm Martha or what my passwords are. So I have no idea.
Me, when I got back from maternity leave, I was like, oh, what's my name? What do I do again?
I think as well they will know that as well. There's the kind of, like you say, forgetting how to do your job, forgetting passwords and stuff. But I think as well they would have seen online on socials and stuff that the industry has changed and not really know how they fit into it or what impact that's going to have on their role and their position and their business and their strategy, like everything. You just kind of feel like you're starting from scratch, don't you?
It's almost like they're going into a new job, isn't it?
Yeah, really? I was about to say similar, Amanda. Like it's almost like they need a reinduction. It's like as long as venues don't think, oh, the back end, that's great. I think there needs to be this whole kind of like reintroducing and reinduction process of your team members, to give them that confidence as well, and for them to understand what empowerment they've got, because there are going to be loads of questions. There are going to be so many new things and requests that people are going to have.
I think a lot of the time the senior management might not know the answers to it as well, because it's going to be government guidelines. Like we had that when we had that little break, or opposite of break, going back to work time in the summer when venues were open again. I was talking to my clients and they were saying people are getting annoyed at us over the phone saying, why don't you know this? And they were like, because the government hasn't even decided it. So it's also filtering down to your colleagues and team members what to do in those sorts of situations, because it will be really nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it's just putting those systems in place, isn't it? And having that communication. It's probably more vital than ever that departments work together, like operations, knowing what can and can't be done. Matthew's on. Hi, Matthew. That was for you. And revenue, what's expected. Have they got high expectations, or, are they just hoping that, things tick along, or what's the budget ideals, etc., etc. Everyone needs to communicate and work together even more. Absolutely. I think.
Well, Kate and I were talking to a venue earlier this month, and they have exactly that problem. Half of the team has been in, and they've been there through the whole process, and the other half have been on furlough. And they were talking to us about what they're worried about, exactly that. And they're trying to put a plan in place now coming out of lockdown, just sort of business plan, but also what are we going to do with the team? How are they going to gel? Because it's kind of a little bit of us and them, and you don't want it to be like that, but it will be like that. It's the people who, you know, who've been used to going into the venue, who've been through the whole process, and then the people who've been at home thinking of things to do and maybe taking up like baking or sewing or something like that, and that's been what they've been doing, or maybe they've been volunteering somewhere else, and their mindset will be completely different. To get those two together, I think has to be handled with a lot of care. You can't just expect that to go well, like, we're back, woohoo. And there might be some, you know, not maybe on purpose, but there might be a little bit of resentment from both sides. You know, some people might say, well, you've been here the whole time while I was on furlough, and other people might say, well, I've been working really hard and I've been on reception and housekeeping, doing all of this while you were at home. And, you know, I'm not saying everyone's going to feel like that, but that we're all human, and that probably will be a little bit of the case. So you have to be really, really careful in those first
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been in contact with the director of a company who has had that exact experience. She's been working this whole year non-stop, managing the whole business on her own, and her whole team have been furloughed. And there is a little bit of those feelings there, rightly or wrongly. We're all human, and you know, they're going to come back, and it's going to be a slower pace, and they're going to be really eased in. And she was like, I just want to scream. I've been working so hard on my own for a year. Like, come on, let's just go. But obviously, you can't do that, and you know, she understands that, and that's why she's looking for help of how to manage it. But but it's only natural to feel like that, because you think people on furlough are having a lovely time, nice break, whereas actually it's really hard, an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, and for me, not working is an absolute nightmare. So if you're one of those people who just needs to work, for example, when I was on maternity leave for 9 months, that was too long for me because I just wanted to work. So if you're on furlough and it's not your choice, you know, you might be going a bit stir crazy, or and some people may have really enjoyed it and they just don't really want to get back into it. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of different mix of emotions and situations.
Yeah. Matthew's saying, I lost 4 of my 7 team members in my conference sales office, and I'm still furloughed, so it's going to be a complete restart.
Gosh,
really hard.
And then what happens? Well, but then what happens when it starts to get really busy? Then you're there with 3 people, trying to make it all work as well, and to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour in a short amount of time is also going to be really hard to handle. That it's so easy at the moment. All we have to do is get out of bed. We're always at home, and that's it. We don't have to think about what we're doing the next day, where we're going. Do I need to pack anything? Do I need to organize anything for the kids? So easy, but we're all going to be like headless chickens, I would imagine.
Yeah, which I think is why it's so important that that people could be honest with each other. Maybe, you know, have that open door policy as well. Lots. I know it's cliche, but you know, have the one-to-ones and constantly asking the team how they're feeling, if they're all right, and if we get the right SOPs and stuff in place and strategies in place, that's going to help that side of things for them, isn't it, as well, before they come back? Because if it is going to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour, and you don't want to be going, what capacity, you know, what's the price, what blah blah blah. You don't want to be in that situation, do you? So it does. The groundwork needs to be done now, doesn't it? Which is hard again for the people that are probably in doing all of that work, having to put that groundwork together. But I think it's definitely worthwhile taking that time.
I think it's also worth considering bringing members of the team back, maybe 1-2 days a week, and gradually bringing them back in. I mean, they don't have to, it could be that they come back to the property, and it could be that they could be assisting with reception or reservations or whatever, not necessarily the job role that they're due to go back in full time to do, but certainly to get them into a routine of getting up, coming back into the property, seeing what's happened, familiarizing themselves almost back with actually, you have now got a routine to come into, and you'll do this XYZ days a week or whatever. So I think that's quite important, rather than just right Monday morning, bang, 40 hours, get on with it sort of thing.
Yeah.
There are quite a few people who've been on part-time furlough as well for the last few months. I've spoken to quite a few team members in that situation, which has seemed from my conversations to be working really well, because exactly like you say, Amanda, it's kind of easing them in. Yeah, Karina's saying that's a great idea, Amanda.
Thanks, Karina.
Yeah, I think picking up on what Becky was saying as well about having the one-to-ones, hopefully you'd kind of do them anyway, but I think it's really important to recognise how different people's situations are. I mean, we're kind of clumping the furlough people and the working people in those kind of two camps, I guess, but actually individually people have had very different experiences. And like Fem was saying, you might, like, I'm the same. I need to work. I love it. I really enjoy it. And if I was to have a year off, I'd probably just start another business, because I wouldn't be able to sit at home.
What I did.
Yeah, that is what you did. You're right. But there will be potentially people who are working who are feeling the opposite. Like, oh, I don't want to be doing this. I'd like to be at home. And the other thing which I was on my notes, I was writing down, is that there's been a lot of deaths, which is obviously awful, over the last year, and some, maybe many of your staff members will have been affected by that and affected by grief. You don't know how recent that's been. I mean, there's kind of predicting a mental health crisis, isn't there, in the country? So how well are you equipped to deal with that in the short term, of course, but also in the longer term? Like, I think there's been talks, I don't know if anyone's seen it, about like the whole country having PTSD after this year, because we've all just tried to keep going every day, and at one point we're not going to be able to. We'll have little breakdowns. So just being mindful of that, and like being open with your team on an individual basis and not just a team basis, to say, we're here. If you are struggling, please tell us. These are the tools that we've got to be able to support you. There's amazing companies that do that specifically within events and hospitality. Eventwell is the one that springs to mind. I know that there are several others. So now is the time, as well as planning a strategy and stuff, to kind of just get those tools in place, so that if something does come up, you can refer your team and support them in the right direction.
I think that's a really good idea of something to do, if obviously budgets and time allows, is to do a session before your team come back in, maybe with somebody like Eventwell, or lots of the, like they say, there are lots of other first aid, event first aid, mental health first aid people around as well. I know that Gavin does that as well. Lee's husband from the HBAA, it's something he does. So there's a few people that do that specifically for the industry, and I think a session like that before everybody comes back in would be really beneficial for the team. If it allows.
It's kind of laying the groundwork to say, we're here for you. You might not be feeling like this now, but if you ever do, just know that it's important to us that you're okay.
And I love the idea of what Amanda said. Actually, I've just been thinking about how it relates back to, I don't know if Fem and Kate, you did this when you were on maternity leave. They had keep in touch days where you could go in and do like a day.
Not do them.
Oh, okay.
They were awful.
Yes.
You used to have keep in touch days where you could go in and work for the day and get paid for it, and it was like woohoo. So
because that's even worse.
What? Because you got a little devil in it, and you wanted to stay.
Everyone's been there for the whole time, and they're just kind of getting on with it, and you just go in and you feel completely like, what am I doing here?
But then I did it towards the end of my maternity, so it acted like starting to get used to the environment, rather than just 2 months in. It dropped me in, kind of thing.
I can see how it can be beneficial. I just knew I wasn't going to be going back, so I didn't.
I see what you mean.
But
I see what you mean, and doing it gradually towards the end, so that you can kind of get back into it, and you can have some meetings to kind of get up to speed and things like that. That I know what you're saying. Sorry, Beck.
All right, you just did.
Yeah, it's interesting. How it would be interesting to hear in the chat how people listening are feeling about the situation over the next few months, whether you've been working or not working, or I know Rachel's been pushing on throughout the whole year, which is really impressive. And
how are you
Matthew as
feeling
well.
about going back as well, and what challenges you think you might face when you go back?
Yeah, and any conversations you've had with kind of industry peers about how they're feeling. I think there's quite a lot of uncertainty around kind of emotions. I think people are maybe not quite sure how they're going to feel and feel a bit nervous about how they're going to feel.
Which is understandable.
Like. Yeah.
Just to make a
Caroline
lighter note, I'm worried about how my feet are going to feel in a pair of high heels.
Yeah, that is so true.
On your
Yeah.
feet all day, Amanda.
On your feet,
high
smiling
heels.
and meeting people, and that whole going back to actually seeing people and having
front facing. Yeah.
Well, I think
conversations that's
you
not
will love that.
in this screen. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's not all negative. Like you say, people are going to all feel completely different. Some people are just going to be like, woohoo, and they're just going to be like, not think twice.
Go for it.
And I think I will have a big smile on my face when I start to see my clients directly face to face again. It'll be amazing. But yeah, the high heels. Yeah.
It's going to be hard to cap like mentoring sessions and training sessions to what we've been used to.
Yes,
we're running, Amanda and I are running several 3-hour sessions next week, and if we were to do that in person, it would definitely take the whole day, because we'd be sitting down chatting and like, really like delving deeper, whereas virtually it's obviously works a lot differently. So yeah, everything's going to take longer. Caroline's saying lots of mixed emotions, both positive and negative. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel like that, not quite sure how you feel. Rachel, trying to keep myself busy with industry peers, think that it's helping with keeping my mental health semi under control. Yeah. I think there's a lot of communication amongst the industry on all these different platforms, which I find is really supportive. Matthew, personally, I just want to get back to work. Industry seems cautiously optimistic.
Yeah,
definitely.
I have to agree with that, Matthew.
Yeah. Lynette, hi Lynette. I'm still on furlough. 50% of our team are now back, and I think it's definitely going to be a fresh start. And as much as you want to head back like nothing has happened, it's going to be just new, and we will need to embrace that. Can't wait to get back though. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you use that phrase fresh start. I do feel like a lot of businesses are using this opportunity as it being a fresh start, and trying to gel teams because of the last year, but also thinking actually the team weren't perhaps as aligned as we would like them to have been previously. So let's use this opportunity to kind of hit the ground running with that and work on relationships and everything.
I know a lot of clients that I've worked with well, there's been a couple of camps. Some have just kind of like gone to ground, but some have just taken the opportunity to review every aspect of their business, which can only be positive, can't it?
Absolutely,
so hats off to those people. Yeah.
I think that just we've talked a lot about internal communication, but I was just going to say that it's quite important that your external communication is also spot on. So letting people know who's in the office, and if you're replying to an email, but then you're off on furlough. So I have an inquiry at the moment for an event in Denmark, and the person responding is only in the office once a day, and it's on Saturday for some reason. So I have to wait a week for all of my responses. But every time he says, I'm going to be next in on Thursday, I'm going to be next in on this day. Manage expectations when you come back, or if it's getting really busy, just let people know, because response times are not how they used to be. Do you remember when we used to be like rated on having 22-hour response times or something like that? Now it's 5 days. It's a different world, and I think that's really important to let everyone know who you're working with, your clients and potential prospects as well, what your situation is, and if you're doing a fresh start, what does that look like, and what enhancements have you made, and how is it going to benefit them, because ultimately you're doing it for your clients, for your staff, but also for your clients.
That's a really good point, actually. I did see a post from an agent on LinkedIn, I think it was last week, saying that they've been trying to get a big inquiry through to a venue, and they've been struggling to get anybody to respond, which obviously you're like, oh no, but
I've
again,
seen so many
maybe
of them
if
as
people,
well.
yeah, maybe if people were again maybe honest and just said this is the situation, communicated, then that I presume would just make them a lot easier to work with, and they would know. Or if there's a certain contact they need to be speaking to while so and so's on furlough, etc. It's just it's quite easy, isn't it, just to let people know the situation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. What a great chat.
We could talk all day, couldn't we?
We could, turns out.
Too short as well.
No, it's funnily enough, Kate, I was looking this morning before we came on the call, because Amanda and I are going to be doing a workshop on Welcome Back to Sales in May. And I was looking at all the things that we need to include. There's so many, like literally we've just scratched the surface today. So watch this space, because there'll be some more info coming on that. Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a lovely Friday. See you next week.
Happy Friday.
Bye.